Alright guys, good morning and welcome to today's class. It's been a very long semester and we started with what is philosophy, philosophy as worldview, the nature and scope of philosophy, functions of philosophy, philosophical problems, basic concepts in philosophy, ethical theories and moral dilemma, and we have the nature and scope of logic. We also treated meaning and definitions, and today we'll be taking the last topic for the semester, which is fallacies. This will be the last topic for the semester, and this is the 8th class for the semester. I do hope you've listened to the previous 7 videos and you've been able to comprehend what was taught. So today, very quickly, is not going to be too long video because it's about fallacy, and so we just move. It's been a great time teaching philosophy, seriously, and I believe you enjoyed philosophy and you have a different conception about what philosophy is now. You believe that philosophy is now about the existence of God alone. You discover we have so many interesting topics in philosophy. And now I wish we had a physical class and you discover that philosophy is interrogative, it brings out discourse that you enjoy and you really do not want to leave the classroom. So that is philosophy. There is beauty in philosophy. And I discover that philosophy will also help you in decision making in life. It will help your thinking, your orientation, and how you see things. You'll be able to see things differently. Philosophy is life. If you will not only take this course as a course you need to pass, and you just think more or less about the things that were being taught, you will discover that one way or the other, philosophy would have influenced your life and your decision. So, very quickly, I will move to discuss fallacy. Now, what precedes fallacy is argument. You know, like we said when we were discussing argument, we have different types of argument, so we won't be going back to that. But we will tell you that some arguments are correct while some arguments are wrong. Nevertheless, it doesn't change the fact that they are arguments, but they are what? Incorrect arguments. There are errors in the line of thought or in the chain of reasoning. So fallacy deals more with arguments. So, what is fallacy? A fallacious argument is one whose premises are irrelevant to the conclusion but appear psychologically persuasive. So, a fallacious argument or fallacy are errors in argument, are errors in laws of reasoning. So, the premises and the conclusion are irrelevant, but one way or the other, they look psychologically persuasive. You want to think as if this person has given a right point, or this person has said what is right, or this person has said what is valid. But then within the chain of argument, you discover that either the premise is not buttressing the conclusion, or the conclusion does not have a good link with the premise. But one way or the other, there are what we call errors in those arguments. So fallacy can be divided into two. We have what we call the formal fallacy and the informal fallacy. The formal fallacy and the informal fallacy. Formal fallacy have to do with violation of rules of valid inferences. Violation of rules of valid inferences. You know, we didn't go into the formal set of argument because I said it's not part of this scheme of work where we change argument into a logical form. You know, I gave you a bit of the example: P implies Q, P therefore Q, something like that. So those are what we call the formal argument. While we have informal fallacy are errors in reasoning that we fall into because of carelessness, inattention, or because we want to trick others in accepting our belief or in accepting what we opine. So there are errors we fall into. They are what we do daily. They are what we use daily when we are arguing about football, about food, about clothes, houses and the rest. That what we do consciously and unconsciously, we fall into this error day in, day out. So we call them informal fallacy. So since you know what formal fallacy occur in formal logic, and it is mostly referred to, the formal fallacy occur, and it is mostly concerned with deductive argument. It's mostly concerned with deductive argument. But then we will not be dwelling into that. We will not be dwelling much in that line for the purpose of this course, because it might be taking us to breed in some deeper philosophical insights and chains of argument or chains of reasoning. Now that we will need some representation. But then, however, since you are not called philosophy student, we would be going straight to the informal fallacies. Now, like I said earlier, the informal fallacies are errors we make in our day-to-day lives and in our day-to-day living. These errors, we make them, maybe we want to trick someone, or we just want to make sure that we convince them that they accept what we are saying to be true, even when we don't have sufficient ground to justify that particular claim. So we have types of informal fallacies. So some of informal fallacies, I'll be listing them. Their names are not English, but they have their English meaning. So as soon as I mention the names that are not English, I will tell you the English meaning, and I will tell you what the fallacies meant. I hope you understand my point now. I'll tell you what the fallacies meant. So the first one is argumentium ad baculum. Argumentium ad baculum. You check the spelling in your textbook. You can check the spelling. That is, we call it argumentium ad baculum. It is called appeal to force. Appeal to force. This is a kind of fallacy that you really do not have substantive evidence, but you just want to appeal to force. For instance, some of you, when you are arguing with your younger ones at home, you try to say, if you say it again, I'm going to slap you. How can you say that I'm wrong? If you say it again, I will slap your face. You are trying to use force. It's like you were wrong, or either you are right. You should have given reasons or premises that, okay, my younger one, I did this, or this is right because of these premises, because of this premise, and hence I have this particular conclusion. But because one way or the other, you know that you are losing. You know, our parents, most time they do it for us. They say, how dare you question me? Come on, shut up. I'm going to slap you if you talk again. And both of them are trying to pass on a kind of argument to justify reasons for acting, or to place one premise ahead of the other, or to place one conclusion ahead of the other. You are trying to give reasons for why something is right, or why you have acted in a way, but then you look at the other party is trying to use force just to be able to win that argument. We call it argumentium ad baculum. It's called what? Appeal to force. Then the other one is called argumentium ad hominem. You must know we have two hominem. So the first one is argumentium ad hominem, which is abusive. When you argue at some point in time, and you shift from the point of argument to start abusing the person, it is called fallacy. For instance, you want to argue between which country is better between Nigeria and let's say Sweden. You want to argue between which country is more better between Nigeria and Sweden, and your opponent is telling you that Nigeria is more better than Sweden because in Nigeria we have enough mineral resources in Nigeria than in Sweden. In Nigeria we have enough manpower than we have in Sweden, giving us what? Premises to support that particular conclusion. But in your own way, you felt that you are already losing out on the argument, and you just say you are a fool. How can you say that Nigeria is better than Sweden? You are a foolish person. I don't even blame you. When you are from one particular town, or when you are from one particular village, they don't used to have sense in your village. You know, you have shifted away from that point of argument to start abusing the person. We call it fallacy in argument. It's called argumentium ad hominem, abusive. So we do it so well. For instance, when you argue about football, you say Messi is better than Ronaldo. This one is a fool, though. That's why he's is short. How can you say that Messi is better than Ronaldo? You know we do it always. Those are what? Fallacy. Instead of you to give, for instance, the issue of Sweden, you can say, okay, in terms of let's say employment opportunity, Sweden provides more employment opportunity than we have in Nigeria, giving your own premise to justify your conclusion. But instead of that, you drift away from the point of argument and you start abusing the persons or the genetic makeup of that particular person. That is what we call fallacy in argument. Then the second one is argumentum ad hominem. I told you we have two hominem. The first one is abusive, while the second one is circumstantial. Argumentum ad hominem, abusive. Then the second one I'm treating is argumentum ad hominem, which is what? Circumstantial. That is when you start to appeal to the circumstances that warrant what has happened, instead of you to tell us or to give us points that justifies or discredit your argument. You start to abuse. This pertains to the relationship between a person's belief and his circumstances. A person's belief and his circumstances. For instance, when you try to say that why should a traditional worshipper be sacrificing innocent animal to his gods, and he's trying to tell you that why are you also eating cow? So he's trying to justify that the circumstances that warrant you eating cow also warranted him sacrificing the innocent animal to his God. Are you getting it? When you are that, okay, for instance, you stole now, and you are trying to bring in circumstances that led to stealing. Are you getting it? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And that's why no matter the circumstances you give in a court of law, they will not justify you. They will only look at your argument. So law students, you understand this better. You know, these are what we use. Arguments, fallacies are what we use to channel our case in the law court. Like I said in the previous class, I said someone that win a case in the court of law is not someone that is right, but someone that knows how to channel his argument properly. So you might be right, you might be correct, and still lose the case if you don't know how to channel your case properly. Then the fourth fallacy is argumentum ad ignorantiam. Argumentum ad ignorantiam. That is argument from ignorance. Argument from ignorance. So when you argue in such a way that because you are ignorant of that particular fact, you believe that it cannot happen or it never exists. You believe it can't happen or what? It never exists. For instance now, someone might argue that Nigeria has more bitumen than Ghana, and you because you are not aware of that fact, you say it's impossible. It can never happen. Nigeria deal majorly with oil. It can never happen. How can you say? So because you are ignorant of a fact does not give the truthfulness or falsehood of that particular argument. Are you getting it? For instance, when we are arguing about the idea of God, and you say that God does not exist because I have not seen him. You don't have to see something for it to be true. Everything you believe today, have you seen everything? So you argue based on your ignorance. So you say that I don't believe because I have not seen it. I don't believe because I have not had it. It can never be true because I have not had it. It can never be true because I have not seen it. It can be true even when you have not seen it. It can be right even when you have not seen it. So we call it what? Argument from ignorance. For instance, you can say there are no ghosts does not exist because I have not seen a ghost before. And you say ghost does not exist. So that is argument based on ignorance. Then the fifth one is argumentum ad miscorrandium. Argumentum ad miscorrandium. Appeal to pity. We call it appeal to pity. For instance, when a boy kills his father and mother, a boy kills his father and mother, and at the end of the day he was charged to the court of law, and he started to argue that please forgive me because if I'm sentenced to death now, nobody will continue our family lineage. You are appealing to pity. All those things does not work. All those things does not work. It doesn't work. Or let's say A convinced armed robber pleading for leniency because nobody will take care of his dependent family if he is executed. You went to steal, you kill people there, and now they are now sentencing you to death, and you say please forgive me because nobody will take care of my wife and family. You are appealing to pity. Is fallacy in argument. Is fallacy in argument. You must give substantial reason why you should not be killed. Maybe you went to steal based on one particular reason or the other that is justifiable under the law. That is what you say. But if it's not justified under the law, then you can't appeal to pity. It's called fallacy. A lot of us do it. Mommy, please don't beat me. If you beat me, I will fall sick. Mommy, please. You know all those things. We do it. Appeal to pity. Then the sixth one, argumentium ad popular. Argumentium ad popular is called appeal. It is committed in directing an emotional appeal to the people. It is committed in directing emotional appeal to the people. When you appeal to the people, for instance, you are arguing in your hostel or in your dormitory, and you know you are wrong, but because you know you have some caucus of guys who believe in your opinion, and this thing happen majorly in football. So you have a lot of fans who are Barcelona fans, and you know they live in a particular floor of the dormitory. So you are arguing who is more better between Messi and Rashford, and you drag him down there that, see oh, come and hear this boy oh, how can he say that Rashford is better than Messi? You are appealing to them, thinking that as much when we have so many people to justify that Messi is better than Rashford, then it means Messi is better than Rashford. It doesn't follow. We can have 1,000 persons says that Messi is better than Rashford, and only one person will say Rashford is better than Messi, and that person will still win the case based on substantive premises, justification, and a nice conclusion. So that you call a lot of people to justify your claim, it doesn't follow, and we do it a number of times. We appeal to people. We think that when we appeal to people, it's really going to help us or to validate the argument. It is what we call fallacy. It doesn't prove the argument to be true or false. The seventh one I'll be discussing is argumentum ad verecundiam. Argumentum ad verecundiam. Appeal to authority. Appeal to authority. When you argue in such a way that your argument is not based on substantive premises, but based on a particular authority that have said so. So for instance, you are arguing and you say that tomorrow we are not going to have sunlight. We are not going to have sunlight tomorrow because Wole Soyinka has said so. So that Wole Soyinka said something does not mean that it is right. You are only appealing to authority. That the Vice Chancellor of University of Ibadan said something does not mean it is right, or does not mean that the argument is valid. But you are only appealing to authority. Rather, you should give reasons why we would not have sunlight tomorrow. We talked about inductive argument earlier on. That okay, you can go on induction that says okay, oh, on this also day of May, we don't always have sunlight for the past 17 years. So that is still a better form of argument than saying that we will not have sunlight because Wole Soyinka has said that, or because someone in very high position has said that. So it's called appeal to authority. And sometimes we commit that also in religious basis. When you argue in terms of religion and say, it's right because my pastor has said it, because my imam has said it. Who told you that your imam can be wrong? Who told you your pastor can be wrong? Can they be wrong? So because they've said it now, it has to be right. It has to be valid. They can be wrong. So you're only appealing to what? To authority. So I will call it what? Fallacy in argument. Then the eighth fallacy I will be discussing is accident. Accident. The fallacy of accident consists in applying a general rule to a particular case whose accidental circumstances render the rule inapplicable. It is a fallacy that consists in applying a general rule to a particular case whose accidental circumstances render the rule inapplicable. So I promise that I'm going to kill whoever kills my son. So when you met the killer of your son, you murdered the person and you are charged to the court of law, and you are saying that because you have made a promise, because promise is a general rule now, and you said promise should be kept regardless of the situation. Because I have promised, so I have to kill you. You will be sentenced to death, irrespective of whether the person killed your son or not. There are better ways to fight or to channel your argument under the law than taking the law into your hands. So it's called fallacy. So nobody will free you because you kept the promise of killing someone who has killed your son. So we call it accident. You know, those issues are also issues we discuss under moral dilemma, but we won't be going to moral dilemma. Then we have what we call converse accident. Converse accident. Converse accident, you know, now I'm using English words now. You know, accident is English. And now this converse accident, we also call it hasty generalization. Hasty generalization. That's another name for converse accident. When you generalize on the basis of insufficient evidence, when you generalize on the basis of insufficient evidence, saying that every Nigerian leader is educated because the last 3 presidents of the nation were educated. It is what we call hasty generalization. You've not verified all evidences to be sure for that you can generalize that particular claim. You are only generalizing based on the few evidences you have. It's called hasty generalization. Now, another example is considering the effect of alcohol only on those who indulge in it to excess. One then conclude that all liquor is harmful and urge that its sale should be prohibited. When you say nobody should take liquor because all liquor is harmful, of which not all liquors are harmful. I don't take liquor, but they said not all liquor are harmful, so I don't know. So, but then the fact that I don't take it does not mean that I should go ahead to say all liquors are harmful. At that point, I will not even be talking from the aspect of hasty generalization. I will be talking from the argument of ignorance. Are you getting my point? So it's still a fallacy. So you can commit 2, 3 fallacies within just a single chain of argument. We call it hasty generalization. The 10th fallacy we'll be treating is false cause. False cause. The fallacy is committed when you say that something is the cause of another, when it is in fact not the cause. When you attribute a wrong cause to something. For instance, you want to channel the point that the university should reduce the population of students living in the hostel, that the hostel is too crowded, and you say, the hostel is too crowded, that's why so many people are having malaria. That is a false cause. It doesn't relate. It doesn't. How does crowdedness of the hostel scientifically leads to students having malaria? But just in a way that they have to accept that hostel is crowded. You don't know how to prove it for them. You need them to see that it is dangerous. You say, that's why people are having malaria now, because the hostel is crowded. You know, we do so many various arguments. We just bring an irrelevant conclusion. We just draw it up to it. We just draw the link together one way or the other. So the other aspect of the false cause is divided into 2. False cause is divided into 2. We have the non-cause pro cause. When you attribute wrong cause to an event, I've told you, that's the first one. When you attribute wrong cause to an event. Then the second one is post hoc ergo propter hoc. Post hoc ergo propter hoc. It occurs when you say that A is the cause of B simply because A precedes B. So, for instance, you came into the room and you saw a woman lying dead there, and you said, because Shegun left the room holding a gun, it means that Segun must have killed the woman. Is fallacy. How sure are you that Segun did not enter the room, seeing the dead woman and picking up his gun to try and run after the person who killed the dead woman? How are you sure that the dead woman did not slump? So, but you are trying to say because this action preceded this action, then it must have caused it. So you are trying to say because we have the night precede the day, then the night must have caused the day. It doesn't follow. It's fallacy. And the 11th fallacy is petitio principii. Petitio principii is called begging the question. Begging the question. And this is the meaning. If one assumes as a premise for an argument the conclusion to be proved, the fallacy committed is petitio principii, or begging the question. Example, when you assume premises, for a conclusion. You have a conclusion in your mind. This is what you want to say, but you don't have sufficient premise, and you start assuming. You start assuming premises for it. You know, premises should lead to your conclusion normally in argument. You should have ground that justify your conclusion. But now you want to pass home a point which happens to be your conclusion, but you don't have sufficient premise. So you start assuming premises for it. For instance, God is the creator of everything that exists, because without him, nothing will exist. It's fallacy. You want to say that God is the creator of everything. Okay, we quite agree. So you give us argument because he created this, he created this, he created this. Not without him, nothing will exist. Are you getting the point? Don't let's be emotional here. Don't let's be religious a bit. But there are so many things that exist without God creating it. And even for you to say God is the creator of everything, what happens to the Big Bang theory? What happened to the Darwin's evolutionary theory? So you have to channel your argument properly. I'm not saying God is not the creator of everything. Don't get me wrong. I'm really trying to let you see the line of argument. Then the 12th one is complex question. Complex question. In a complex question, there is a presupposition that a definite answer has already been given to a prior question that was asked. Thus, the first assume that the answer is yes, when you already have an answer to the question. You already have an answer to the question. For instance, have you stopped beating your wife? Have you stopped bedwetting? You already have an answer in your mind already. Or you expect one particular type of answer. You are asking a complex question. As simple as it looks as if it is. So, if you go to meet someone, have you stopped beating your wife? You expect him to say no or to say yes. What are you expecting? So, we call it complex question. Then, the 13th fallacy will be treating is ignorantio elenchi. Ignorantio elenchi. That is not an English word. So, the English word is a relevant conclusion. So, sometimes we can draw a relevant conclusion. A relevant conclusion. Now, for example, when one infers from some remark about the horribleness of murder, that a defendant is guilty for it, or suggesting the cutting down of the number of students because of unemployment, you just draw a relevant conclusion. So it's there is too much unemployment in Nigeria, so we should reduce the number of students going to school. Too much unemployment, so we should reduce the number of students going to school. Is an irrelevant conclusion. Because if you reduce the number of students going to school, does that solve the problem of unemployment? Those not going to school, will they still not look for a job? Would they still not want to work? So it's what? A relevant what? Conclusion. Then we have the 14th one. We have fallacy of equivocation. Fallacy of equivocation. When you use a word or term in different sense in the same argument, when you use a word or term in different words in the same argument, I'm going to the bank after I finish in the bank. I'm going to the bank after I finish in the bank. We have bank of a river. We have bank where you deposit money. Are you getting it? Now, let's look at the example here. It says, the end of a thing is perfection. Death is the end of life. Therefore, death is perfection of life. End is used to mean two different things here. The same way bank is used. End is used to mean two different things. End is used to mean a goal. And end is used to mean the termination of life. So we call it fallacy of what? Equivocation. And the second to the last fallacy we'll be treating is fallacy of division. Fallacy of division. It is committed when the characteristics of a whole are thought to necessarily apply to a part. The characteristics of a whole are thought to necessarily apply to a part. Nigeria is great, therefore every Nigerian is great. Is fallacy. So that US is a successful nation, so to speak. If that's correct, does that mean every US citizen is successful? So we call it fallacy of division. Fallacy of division. So sometimes we use it. Nobody is suffering in those kind of countries. Nobody in the US is suffering. How can someone be in France and suffer? Because France is a great nation. Does it mean that everybody there is great? Nigeria is a member of UNO, therefore all Nigerians are members of UNO. Not all Nigerians are members of UNO. So we call it fallacy of division. Then the last fallacy is fallacy of composition. Fallacy of composition. We call it opposite, is the opposite of the fallacy of division. When you attribute the quality of a part to the whole. You know, the first one is attributing the quality of a whole to a part. Now, a part to a whole. For instance, all the actors are good in Nigeria. Therefore, all the films produced in Nigeria is good. All the actors are good in Nigeria. Therefore, all the films produced in Nigeria is good. There are times there are movies in Nigeria that they use very good actors. And one way or the other, the movie does not really sound interesting. Why? Being interesting is relative anyway. But to me, some movies are not interesting. Like, what is the name of this movie? We have so many good actors there. Is it Big Daddy or what are they calling it? Chief Daddy also. There are so many good actors there. And for me, the movie does not really make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense. That's my personal opinion. You can have your own opinion. The Chief Daddy for me does not make sense. For me, we have so many good movies in Wedding Party 2, but I don't see the need for it. Yeah, the two. I watched those movies and I felt that, well, you shouldn't even have gone to do this, because it doesn't really make sense. Well, maybe they do it based on promotions and profit basis, but I can go on and on to mention so many movies, not only Nigerian movies, even foreign movies that you have good quality actors, and at the end of the day you discover that the movie is not interesting and the movie is not good. And you have movies where you have very little actors that they are not pronounced, they are not that good, but then they still produce quality movie. Are you getting my point now? So I think it's a problem for the movie industry anyway, not for me. They have to deal with their problem. So that is the end of fallacy, and that is the end of the discourse of philosophy for this semester. I do hope you enjoyed your time with me. I do hope you get to understand things that was taught. I do hope I've been able to impact your life positively. My goal as a teacher, like I always say in the prep talk I send to you on the WhatsApp group, is to build students and destiny and leave the planet better than I met it, hand over to the next generation better world than I met. So chill out, enjoy philosophy, success in your test, success in your exam. I wish you the best, the very best of luck in your philosophy journey and in your life journey. So you're always open to chat me up on 07039587205. Feel free to keep subscribing to the channel, keep sharing the videos to help beginners in philosophy. So I remain myself, Oluwatobi David Esuma, and this will be the first time I'll be telling my nickname on a recorded video. You do call me on the WhatsApp group. You call me living legend. So do have a great time in life. Thank you. It's a privilege being with you. It's a privilege teaching you. It's a privilege talking to you. And thank everyone who has made this opportunity happen. Thanks to the University of Ibadan for this privilege to be able to impact life. Thanks to the Department of Philosophy, University of Ibadan. Thanks to the GES unit for everything, for the opportunity given to impact life and destiny. Thumbs up to everyone who have watched the videos. Thumbs up to everyone who has made sure that we get this video out and for you to listen. So, do well, do enjoy your life. Bye.